What if I told you that deleting content from your nonprofit website could actually boost your donations? Sounds crazy, right? But that's exactly what happened when Meg took the helm of redesigning Project Hope's website. From boosting organic traffic to tapping into the gaming community for fundraising, this NGO saw tremendous growth, all by making some bold moves. Want to know the secrets behind this digital transformation? Stick around because we're diving into the game-changing strategies that could dramatically boost your nonprofit goals. Meg, thanks for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Amazing. So it seems as if in a previous life you were a marine biologist or something in that direction, saving seals and turtles. Um, how did you go from, what's the background story there? And then how did you go from, I'd say, like working really hands-on on cute animals on the mission, and then, working to empower the mission and really go for scale and doing this digital stuff.
I have a very interesting background. Yes, so I have a degree in marine biology,
Yep.
and my minor was actually film media because I
Okay.
have a lot of film background, and it was just something that always interested me. And so I started my career rescuing animals, marine mammals, doing a lot of research for marine mammals. It brought me to Washington State. Brought me to Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and I did a bunch of internships. I did a bunch of work uh, hands-on with animals, and then my life was just like, okay, you can either get a doctorate or you
Yeah.
can be a volunteer, but like the jobs market is just not always there. So I leaned into my other passion, which was film, and I was able to be on the film team for my previous organization, IFAW, and that evolved into website work because, the film where you showcase it is on the website, and my it's just ever evolving from there. And then I moved from Cape Cod to Washington, D.C., where I'm based now, and I've really leaned more into websites so that I can maximize speaking about the work through a high profile channel for
Yeah.
viewers.
That makes a lot of sense. Do you miss the cute, fluffy little animals at all?
I miss
Any in particular?
whales. I'm a whale
Okay.
person.
Yeah, great.
I miss whales so much and
I bet.
seals, but I'm still doing great work, and I still am so supportive of all
Yeah.
of the things that that
Yeah, they're
organization does.
majestic creatures.
They are.
Absolutely need a lot of protection and support
Hmm.
from all of us. So, yeah, what a great journey. And Project Hope is an interesting story too, also connected to the ocean, right? And for those watching at home, Project Hope started in 1958, I believe, with the vessel SS Hope, which was a name change from USS, from the Navy, USS Hope, and really the first peacetime hospital ship of its kind. And I mean, what a great way to be able to move an entire, almost like hospital around in the southern hemisphere, where so much is coastal, and having an impact there. But the ship has since retired. Operations have moved to land, and today Project Hope boasts over, I think, 1,000 employees plus, over 5 continents, supporting 25 countries, of which Ukraine, where I am now, is one of those. Is that all correct so far?
All correct.
Okay, okay. So staying with this whole water theme, I looked at some of your previous posts, and you had a very interesting post on LinkedIn about a year ago. I think it was a year ago, where you said, "A year ago, I joined Project Hope while they were in the middle of responding in Ukraine. There's nothing quite like jumping into an Olympic pool, thinking you would start out in the kiddie pool."
Hmm.
What was some
Definitely.
of the thinking going on there? What were the things that were kind of, what was that jump in terms of that kiddie pool to Olympic pool from this digital realm and big NGO kind of space?
I think it takes a really special person to work in a disaster response. Nonprofit workers, humanitarian workers, response workers, you don't have a break. And I, when I moved to Project Hope, I was also doing Ukraine work previously, and then also
Okay.
doing Ukraine work for Project Hope. And it was constant. I mean, you're still dealing with it to this day. It is a constant ever evolving presence. And when you start a job, I was very nervous because I was a veteran at my old organization. I had been there for 7 years, and I was in a new place, and I was like, I don't know what to do. Being thrown into a job where you're in an active emergency is a complete way to get totally familiarized quickly. So it was hit the ground running, and what can we do to make sure that we can help as many people as possible? So it was an Olympic sized pull up, but it was a
Yeah.
really thankful thing because you learn very quickly what work you're doing and what you can achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hear you on all of that. I had my own induction here over the last 1.5 years. Speaking about like this space more broadly, about this Olympic pool, it's definitely also a competitive environment, but at the same time, um, donations have been kind of stagnant over the last year. We've seen a bit of a pullback. Um, how does how does that creep in all the way to your role? Like what is the how does company strategy trickle down to you in that regard and to your world of things?
It definitely trickles in. There is, especially I think with so many external factors that you can't control, there haven't been natural disasters actually in the
That's a really
past
good
year,
point. Yeah.
which is something that I think a lot of response organizations are fearful of. Not that we want natural disasters to happen, but if that's something that you have a program based on and it's not a donation revenue for you right now,
Yeah.
that there is a concern there. But then also, on top of that, unfortunately, the Ukraine war is still happening, and things that are happening in the Middle East are still happening. And it kind of, people are a little desensitized to it as well because it's a constant everyday situation. So, on my end, I needed to build trust with my organization that I knew how to communicate to a donor and just to a viewer or supporter that you can trust us, that we can do things long standing. One of those things when I first started was seeing that we needed a new website, and I'm sure we're going to get to that.
We
Um,
will.
but how do we communicate and showcase our work to a general audience and not just to high profile donors or career seekers? How do like the average Joe on the street go onto our website and be like, okay, they're doing amazing work. I want to support them. Even if I can't donate to them, if I can get the word out. So that was a goal of mine. It's still a goal of mine to keep ever growing that.
That leads very naturally to one of my questions, where when looking through the financials of Project Hope, and kudos also for being very transparent, we'll also talk about that with regards to the website. But I've noticed that Project Hope relies less on individual donations and more on these like large corporate donations. I'm assuming, from what you've just said now, there's a bit of a strategy to diversify more or to increase this individual pool. Is that correct?
I'm not the expert on that part,
Yeah,
but
fair enough.
from what I understand is that a lot of like long impact lasting, I'm using all these brand terms, these lasting impact programs are based off of these corporate donations, these
Yeah,
these guaranteed that these programs will last. But we also have to depend on what we're going to call unrestricted donations or these lower level donations from like the $100, $5, $1,000, because that keeps the lights on, that keeps the gears turning. So each piece is essential, and I think that we don't want to forget about each donor experience either. I wouldn't want that. That's important to me is that if I am, because on my personal side, I am a monthly donor to a different organization that's just more local to me. And I would want them to treat me just as much the same as a corporate donor to an extent that I feel like I'm making an impact there.
yeah, yeah. I really like that comparison in terms of you as a donor wanting to feel that impact, usefulness, that your continued contribution is turning the cogs in the machine, and that is resulting in more humanity, for lack of a better term. Um, what is the big, I guess, digital challenge for Project Hope going into this new year?
I think, unfortunately, a lot is unknown, especially for the US. The elections
Mm,
do play a big factor in there because, despite not even just the presidential piece, but for the US, the different houses determine safety laws, they determine um, regulation laws, AI, just all of that. And so, a challenge that I foresee happening is what can we talk about? Google has changed the way things have worked in the past year, especially changing to Google Analytics 4. So the way that we could track data before to track data now is completely different. Um, I don't like to be a creeper. I don't want my life to be creeped on. It is
yeah,
helpful. There are heat maps. You can like scroll and see how people are clicking on your page now.
yep,
It can get really granular, not knowing that exact person, but just getting really granular and using that data has been extremely helpful for me to know what works on my website, but I don't know if that's going to change next year with GDPR does not exist in the US now, but it is coming. I know it's coming. So if that's next year or if that's,
yep.
2 years, 5 years from now, those are might ever keep me up at night fears.
Yeah, I know that's fair. So there's like push-pull factors of
Mhm.
sorts. So getting into not the roadblocks, like these new things popping up out of nowhere, but the sort of the more passion projects where you get to lead yourself. If I'm not mistaken, you launched a redesign now in May of 2024. Is
I
that
did.
correct? Okay, amazing. Um, can you give us the high level view of the reasons and the goals, if the goals shifted for this redesign, just like the story behind what the motivation was.
Definitely. When I started, I came in, they had never had a website manager before, so it was a whole new aspect for Project Hope to have someone who's dedicated fully to the website. I came in and I did an audit, and it took me 6 months to do this audit where what was just clutter, what was working, what wasn't. There was 404 pages, there were just nothing was connecting properly. There were some gems in there, but for the most part, the website just needed a complete overhaul. That is obviously an investment. So having to have the trust from my leadership to be like, yes, we do want to have this new website to really showcase all the work because Project Hope itself has grown so much in the past 5 years that we haven't had a chance prior to really exemplify all of that work. When COVID hit, we had a huge boom with a lot of health worker trainings, with a lot of just COVID response in general. And then Ukraine happened, like the beginning of Ukraine, in a sense, happened. And we were there. We have teams, we have offices there, and we have this huge donor drive coming in, but we also have just like the programmatic work has grown exponentially. So the need for a new website happened. And of course, when a new website happens, they want to rebrand. So they wanted to
Yeah,
get a whole new colors and uh, taglines and all of that stuff. And that, of course, snowballs and there's so much work put into place. So on top of having a whole new website redesign, it took a year and a half to do was because essentially happened when I first started to today. There was brand redesigns. There was so many meetings to make sure that we were getting the most we could with Project Hope.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A year and a half is not too bad. We've seen some things in our life doing because we do enterprise WordPress, and yeah, we've definitely seen some. It's usually not the software that's the blocker. It's
Hmm.
it's the committees, the steering committees, the
Oh yeah.
boards, and the decision makers, stakeholders, all that good stuff. The quorums.
Hmm.
You spoke a bit about an audit before. What
Hmm.
was what was the tool, like the more tangible, tactical thing in that audit that yielded the most results for you? What was that like, that process?
I don't know if this is the best platform, but I personally love Moz, M-O-Z.
Yeah.
I use it for just like they do the crawls every week, every month, however you need it. I set up key terms through there, which I absolutely love. But the crawl I use just to know like what pages are pinging back, which ones are not getting searched by Google, because that to me is really important. And so I was using that just to start me out. And then I would bring in other things like Google Search Console. I would use Google Analytics. Right now, I'm also using Microsoft Clarity. Um, and we also have vendors that would also bring in data just so we weren't having someone previous that was just looking at the data and seeing what worked. And now that is possible. I'm I'm putting my time towards that to be like, okay, we have these sorts of stories, these sorts of articles working, so let's expand on that. And so we've seen a lot of success that way.
I get that feeling too because when I looked at the data, it seems as if you're hitting new records with organic data, if I'm not mistaken.
Our organic search is bananas. It is
Yeah.
so good. I've never
That's
seen this
amazing.
before.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And is that a high concentration of a couple keywords in a very specific set of pages, or is this more of a long tail strategy? Can you even sum up the SEO strategy that you've like undertaken here?
I part of it could probably just be luck. But
We're not going to talk
I
about that.
I am very intentional with my articles that go on the website. So I work closely with our editorial director to come up with a calendar. He works really closely with our programs to see what stories they want to come out with. And then I, on the other end, I'm like, okay, you have stories you're coming your way, but I have stories I want to be talking about that I know people are searching for. So I have been working with him specifically. We have something coming out next month. I do not want to like put it in their universe because I don't want it to like fail, but I have something coming
Don't
out
jinx
next
it.
month. I'm very excited about that's a passion project on my end
Yeah.
that based off of data, solely based off of data and the programmatic work we do, is we're trying to launch. And so I'm looking at data, I'm looking at keyword searches, I'm looking at what our users are also looking at. And I'm like, okay, if you're looking up, uh, let me try to think of an example off the top of my head. Of course, it's not like COVID vaccines. I want COVID vaccines. Okay, I'm going to type up in Google, where can I get a COVID vaccine? I want Project Hope to be in there and be like, we have free clinics in these cities. So I'm coming in from the data point. We have programs coming in from their events point and finding a happy medium. And I think that also one of my biggest successes was getting rid of those excess pages. We had press releases or stories that didn't
Yeah.
make sense that were needed at the time, but
Like a content graveyard.
exactly. So getting rid of them. And once that happened, our website started booming because Google's like, okay, that's all gone.
So, so you got a boost potentially because you removed low performing content.
Hmm.
Wow, that's gonna
Yeah.
be a hard one for people to swallow, especially NGOs where they're like, I don't want to delete anything.
Yes. Having to tell my CEO that he's like, where are the old
Yep.
press releases? I was like, they are archived internally now. You will not find them on the website.
That'd be so funny if you had like a projecthope2.org or something like that. You just
Hmm.
move them to a second domain or projecthopeold.org.
Yeah.
I'm sure they wouldn't be happy either. But you touched on something great here, which is, you're talking a bit about your editorial flow, your editorial process. And what I see a lot of INGOs do is that they'll have separate sites or subsites for individual countries, regions, markets. my impression is that you're running all of it off of projecthope.org. What is that an international team with contributors in individual countries? Is how many editors, authors are we looking at? Like, what does that landscape look like?
We have one website, projecthope.org, but we do have some subsidiary organizations, including in Indonesia and Dominican Republic. And so they actually have their own microsites that are not
Mm.
affiliated with us. They use same branding for some things, but
Yeah.
they are completely handled by someone else. For projecthope.org, my next website redesign is going to be in multi-languages. The reason we didn't
Okay.
do multi-languages for this is solely because we don't have translators. I mean, we have team members that can translate, 10 to 15 articles or pages, but they can't, there's like 600 to 700 pages on this website. They can't do that. So you'd need to hire a translation services. And that is also not going to happen with the budget that we'd had. So I think planning more in advance of like multi years in advance for budget for translations would be ideal. So right now it's all in English. I would love to have it in multi-language, but right now it's in English, and our contributors are all over the world.
Yeah.
We have our editorial director writes most of them along with a writer, but if there's anyone who wanted to contribute, especially in Ukraine, we have a huge Ukraine team. They write stories all the time. Um, they also contribute.
And are you using the block editor then to create content?
Yes, we're
And
using
do you
Guggenheim.
lock that down at all in terms of like how much they can do? Do you have like restrictions in place?
Not right now.
Risky.
Well, not everyone has access to
Okay.
the CMS, so
Yeah.
I'm actually the one building most of the stories,
Okay.
and we probably have about 10 other people who have access to the websites. But anyone who's writing is not building the stories.
Okay, so editorial flow is more like write it in Google Docs, write it
Hmm.
somewhere, send it to us, we'll get it online.
Exactly.
Okay, understood.
Yes. And our editorial director usually designs the story after it's been written. He'll design it where he'll put the photos and videos, whatever is
Yeah.
needed, and then I'll build it out. But sometimes I might take liberties and like make things a little bit prettier than just how the Word document looked.
Have to experiment. I mean, that's part of
Hmm.
the platform, WordPress. I mean, it is
Hmm.
supposed to be enabling marketers and content creators to express themselves in a no code or low code way.
Hmm.
And how has the journey with WordPress been then? Has that been empowering? Has there been limitations?
It was definitely a learning curve changing to Guggenheim. So,
Gutenberg.
Gutenberg, thank you.
Yeah.
I was like Guggenheim's not right. Gutenberg, because
I like it too.
we were using the classic previously.
Yep.
So, and with the classic, you can go code. So, being used to going into the HTML and editing things to how you wanted it was so easy. It was a pain in the butt when you like had to do it in your day to day, but comparatively, like there are some things in Gutenberg that you can't do because it's block. That you're like, oh, I just wish I could go into HTML fix this, but we just kind of like let it go and just.
Yeah, it's frustrating because you have to create the block almost from scratch, right? By taking an
Mhm.
HTML block and then actually writing the whole stuff out.
Mhm.
Or you nest an HTML block inside of another block, and that could be a way to do stuff. Still not great because you might just want to change the color of like one button or something like that,
Mhm.
and then you still don't have all the code. So yeah, I get that. Like it's almost you don't necessarily want to write a ton of new HTML or CSS. You might just want to override something, and that obviously makes a lot of sense. So yeah, that all sounds very good. And any intentions to moving to or doing any kind of full site editing?
Not right now.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it's a whole new kind of world to expand on, and it comes with its own challenges and
Hmm.
rework and everything. So it's not something that happens overnight, to say the least. So coming back to you talked a bit about heat maps before. And you're talking about your kind of passion project that's all data driven. What are the analytical tools that you're looking at or that you're using to inform your day-to-day or future decisions when managing this site?
I primarily use Google Analytics for and Microsoft Clarity.
Yeah.
I'm new to Microsoft Clarity. That was through our web developers had suggested it. It's dangerous because you get so much information, but it is really, really great. And I joke with a coworker. He said that it's like whoever made Microsoft Clarity used to work at Google and just put everything that Google no longer does in it because it just gives you all the information you don't have through Google. So between the two, I get everything I need.
Interesting. And you also, for the donations, I believe it's like Blackbaud or formerly Convio, whatever it's called. Um, are you tracking the attribution of these donations at all?
I am, but through a different team member who's in charge of the
Okay.
donation. So I'm not handling donation forms. I work very closely with the team so that we can maximize them as much as possible, but I'm not directly involved with that, and they create all the source codes.
Cool, cool, cool. And one of the interesting things is when I spoke to Amnesty International was that they had this massive realization that half their traffic is just students looking for things and just to read up on things. And similarly here, you've come in, they never had that role before. You're probably discovering land for the first time in many ways that they haven't really interpreted. What have been some of the like wild realizations, when looking at the data? Yeah, like what are some of the like the largest aha moments throughout this site's process?
There are two. One, which we kind of touched on before with the organic traffic, that's actually is bigger than that. For a few months, we had over half of our online donations were through organic traffic, which also is really unheard of.
Yeah, agreed.
Usually you're dependent on email, social media a little bit, but mostly email with online. But because it was homepage donations like organically, I'm so proud of that happening. And then additionally, we are in the streaming space, and so we have content creators who stream and charity, and with that, we pulled a lot of male donors and viewers onto our website. Where when you're looking at gender, I mean that's always
It's
um,
quite female driven, no?
it's female
Normally.
driven, but you never know if that data is correct because it could be your dad going on your laptop. Who knows? But it is typically female driven. It's usually
Yeah.
skewed older, but right now with the streamers, it depends on if a campaign is happening, but it could be we had a lot of I think it was like 60% male and between ages 18 to 30 for a solid 6 months. So that was really surprising for us and you want to lean into that when you can.
I completely agree. I mean, we rescue cute little doggos from front lines and bombs and God knows what, and that should be actually quite appealing to that demographic you just
Hmm.
mentioned. But that is not our normal demographic. We really have the typical charity demographic. What, and I feel like I've looked at this a bit in terms of what Project Hope has done, and this whole Hope for Ukraine hashtag, and I'm assuming you've had other campaigns like this where I think Hope for Ukraine had 1,600 Twitch streamers partnered with, some like incredible number regardless.
Hmm.
Um, that's something that's not, you don't normally see. You see very few organizations go after Twitch streaming or even politics, right? AOC might have been like one of the only ones to then go play Among Us with a
Hmm.
bunch of fans and then partner with a Twitch streamer, and that like went, massive. What sort of tips or advice would you give young NGOs or no, young profit non-profits starting out trying to leverage like these new mediums, in particular like the Twitch platform?
I'm going to take the words from the person who
Absolutely.
who is in charge of our streaming. I
Yeah.
just go to TwitchCon, so
Yeah.
I'm there because I'm a
Oh,
gamer on the
fancy.
side. His advice is to treat it's similar to how you treat donors. You treat
Yeah.
each streamer like they are the best streamer. You have those conversations with them. You trust them that they are going to grow. You start from this like some of our greatest ambassadors, greatest Twitch streamers are people who started out with maybe 15 viewers and now they're at the thousands and
That's amazing.
tens of thousands. It's because they have been trying so hard from the beginning, and we put trust into them that they could do good work, and that we share the same beliefs, and it's just grown from there. So even if there's a Twitch streamer who, it's their mom, dad, and grandma who are watching them, like who knows what's going to happen in 6 months? Who knows what's going to happen in a year? So just having trust in them, I think, is really important.
So you're saying you had a Post Malone when he had 10 followers and then grew the account really large?
That was so fun to watch. I
Yeah,
don't know how that
I did
happened,
find
but that
that.
was,
Yeah,
yeah,
very, very cool.
yeah,
I
that was a fun one. He seems like a really great guy. I think he's like
agreed.
streamed with little kids and like made their day.
A bit like John Cena with his is it Make-A-Wish Foundation where he's
Hmm.
holding the record.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's some amazing celebrities out there that are incredibly selfless in those ways. And how does such a campaign, which generates a lot of awareness, a lot of buzz, and then how are you linking back, how are you capturing that on the website, making sure everything's going down without a hitch? Because in our case, for our little dog charity, we were featured in the New York Times 2 months ago. All of a sudden, traffic goes off the wall. You have like a 2, 3 hour window where nothing can go wrong.
Hmm.
How's the pressure? How does that connect? Is there any pre-flight checklist in terms of what you're looking out for to manage these kind of high traffic events?
Yes. I'm glad that you think it goes off without a hitch. It definitely does not. Um, I would say that especially working closely with our media team, if we know that they're going to go out with like a press release or something, or talk to media, or if we know a campaign with like Post Malone is going to go on, I look at a benchmark. I'm going on Google Analytics. That real time is existing and it's not leaving my screen, benchmarking what it was before and seeing how
Yeah.
it grows. And then also just making sure that all the team members are aware this is happening, because if, like, let's say everyone saw a video of this really inspiring thing to happen, they want to donate, and they're all going to that same website at the exact same time, your website's going to crash. So like having the people prepare to get the website back up is really important too. The website launch that happened in May, like I don't think I slept for 48 hours before that, just making sure that everything was perfect. So I think just having all hands on deck, but like being reasonable and just cheering everyone on. I think keeping a calm presence and just being like thankful that everyone's around you is calm, cool, collected.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of these things, obviously, when everything does go down without a hitch, there's not necessarily a CEO there saying, hey, you've gone above and beyond because it's just stayed online. And so it almost seems like it's, oh, yeah, I mean, that's kind of obvious it should stay online. But it's very much not the case, right? So being able to minimize and be at 100%. And in some ways, it's a bit ironic because the highest traffic event we've ever had on our enterprise side of things was for one of the newspapers during an election, and we did 8 billion page requests in an hour.
Amazing.
And then, well, no, that was a full-on DDoS attack, and that's when AWS steps in.
Hmm.
Every other news site in the country is down. You're the only one that's up and online. But then at the same time, with my small charity stuff, I can't I can't necessarily keep that same drive going. So yeah, it's different scales, and if you're just starting out, I'm guessing having a high like some random person tweet about you, stream about you is this kind of new world, new reality where it might really change things. So there's almost like this always on, always ready kind of mentality, I guess, to these things. Any other on-page optimizations you do? in terms of like A/B testing? Do you personalize anything based on geographies? Is this still new territory? How's this all feeling?
Um, we are A/B testing, and I will say that we haven't started on the new website yet. The best advice we got when it launched was give it 3 months to get itself in to see how the numbers were doing.
It's
So
good
we're going to
advice.
start A/B testing this month using VWO. And that's going to go everything from content testing, video versus photo.
Yeah,
We might do color changes, might be just text changes. Um, Kind of seeing, but this is the month to do it because we don't want to do it during donation season. I mean, it's probably the best time to do it, but we are so because especially because no natural disasters have happened, we have a hefty goal for December, so we want to get our testing done this month, a little bit in October, and then have it set for November and December. Um, no other optimizations at this point, but I'm always looking. Like we used to have a quiz feature on our old website. It
yeah.
didn't come over with our new one, but we're building it now. So we're just kind of getting the ball rolling with those new features as time keeps coming.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And one of the things, and you hinted at it before in terms of like this credibility, transparency. When I went into Wayback Machine and looked at your old sites, all the way to
Hmm.
2002, just to kind of see the
Oh God.
evolution. Well, to be honest, it was quite a linear evolution from then on. Like the one you've done now is the largest change by far, in my personal opinion. So great job in that regard. But I've also noticed the most in terms of promoting uh, the sort of badges, from Charity Navigator, the other kind of trust ones. Do you actually have any kind of data led, or have you made a data led decision in regards to this credibility and transparency? Is that something that has been increasingly desired and demanded from the donor base? What are your thoughts there?
We have tested it on donation forms and on website, and it is something that folks are looking for. Um, going back to streamers a little bit, when I've spoken one on one with streamers, if they're wanting to go to a charity to know that they want to stream for them, they're looking for that. And I know a lot of donors are as well. So if we have it first and foremost, that's important for them to know that we're reputable. There's so many organizations out there that people can donate to. So making sure that we are available and that we have the credibility to be trusted is important to us. And we've tested it and it seems to be successful.
Is it a large variance? If you had to guess, what is the like the donation flow with no mention of credibility and transparency? Maybe just like saying like, hey, we've done this and that, but not really leaning into the kind of like more reputable transparency factors, whatever. And then, going all out on that kind of loadout. Would you say that's, are you getting a 20% boost or more? Like what's your gut feeling on how important this is for a first time visitor to have the conviction to press that donate button?
I don't have those numbers. I can speak
I
from
realize that. Just gut
yeah.
feeling. Just
Yeah,
like
gut
gut feeling.
feeling. I think that it probably has increased a lot. I don't know the numbers, but I know for our donation forms, when they've done the testing, it was a big difference. It was a big enough difference that it was mandatory to put it, like,
Okay.
continue it. And from my personal, I also volunteer on the side um, for a climate change group, just a local one. We're all just volunteers. We've seen that change just from having one seal on it. So I think that they are important for folks now.
Yeah, I agree. I'd love to figure out over time what that difference is.
Hmm.
But
I'm gonna do
yeah,
that
I
after
can.
this. I'm gonna figure it
Yeah.
out.
It really sounds like we have a part two brewing, just because you have this passion project. There's some data
Oh,
markers. We've waited for the 3 months now for you to
hmm.
collect data, so we've got A/B testing coming back too. Now you've withheld something about this new website, which I had to find out myself,
Hmm.
and that is that the default dollar amount for a donation one time or monthly is $50. So that's already quite aggressive, the monthly one, because usually it's like 29. But the much more interesting default value is the crypto one, which is at $10,000. What are you hiding? What is the secret? How is that the default donation amount?
I had no idea that was it.
Yeah.
I know nothing about crypto.
Well, if you go on your
Uh,
website and you click on
yeah,
the crypto donation,
that might be, well, my understanding is that crypto dollars are different than real dollars. So
they're more or less
maybe
the
that,
same. It was 0.17 Bitcoin or something like that. It was like the
okay.
default. So I think it was taking the default USD denomination as
Uh,
10,000 and converting it to BTC. So you're still not out of the woods on this one.
oh my God. My guess, 'cause I have absolutely no idea, is that the third party we use, I think it's the Giving Block, they
Yes,
have it set like that. So it must be
that's
something
amazing.
with the Giving Block, and I hopefully someone's donating that much, but I have no
I mean, if you just have one donation like that, it really changes the game, especially for us,
idea.
you know. Like
Really?
I'd love sign me up.
Right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that sounds really, yeah, really good. Now, one of the interesting things I always find is, um, you've had to for this site redesign, you've had to make the business case, you've had to go to your CEO, talk about various things. And Project Hope is a charity that really prides itself, I think, in its I think in the US it's called like program expense. How much money is going to the mission versus empowering the mission and fundraising and all that kind of stuff. And I think yours is around 88%
Mhm.
of each dollar goes to the mission, which is incredible. And at the same time, this is quite a legacy kind of institution. Um, it's great that you're on WordPress because let's say there's a bad donation month, or like as you say, there's no disasters, or other things happen, and it's just not that big of a run this Christmas season. Things pull back. You still have all of the platform for free, so to speak, all the SEO tools that come with WordPress. That's great. But how how do you need to be conscientious of these, because like you can request budget and hope that that budget drives that same amount of fundraising or more back to maintain that 88%. Is that something that's like top of mind for you when you think about these things? Like are you thinking about this balance?
Constantly. Um, I am very proud. We launched this website on time, but we also
Yeah.
launched it under budget. So I
Well
don't think
done.
that's heard of typically. So we had already put that investment up front. We already paid that. So I actually
Yeah.
have budget left from the website launch, a certain amount of hours that I can now put into any other build. So I mentioned the quiz feature that didn't come over with the website
Yeah.
build. I'm now putting those extra hours into it, so I don't have to worry about that, luckily. That's obviously not the case for everyone else typically. When I did my previous organization, I did a website relaunch, and that was not the case at all. So it's definitely top of mind, and that is when you get creative with how to get viewers onto your site and then how you get them to want to donate and be that organization to donate. And that's also collaboration with all your teams. So our teams are coming together, email, social media, direct mail, media. We're all coming together, we're meeting, and we're having a campaign or multiple campaigns where we can really build off of each other. If something's going out in direct mail, I want to make sure on my homepage, because that's my most traffic site, has something about that on that homepage. Or if I know that our corporate team is going out for a partnership with a corporate partner, that I have something on my homepage that relates to what that grant might be about, or kind of in the situation where they know that when they go to that homepage that they are seeing something that be like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I want to be supporting right now. So
Yeah.
it's really having that open dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely. And like taking that a bit further in terms of budget, AI obviously quite big. Is that or other experimental technologies? building the CMS, quite straightforward, redesign, quite straightforward. And now, the 3 month holding period for analytics has kind of passed.
Mhm.
How do you see some of these newer technologies potentially play a role in Project Hope in the next 1, 2, 3 years?
I will admit, I am an AI skeptic. I think there are great benefits to AI, but for me, AI is based off of what exists, and then also AI builds off of itself. So if AI has been given something that was incorrect or that it wrote itself previously, it's not always accurate. So you always will need someone there to check it to make sure that there's integrity in place, that
Like the
there's
person in the middle.
respect, the person in the middle. And also there's like an ethical conversation that has to happen with it as well. I think that AI is really helpful to get the ball rolling, to get ideas in place, to get summaries in place, but I wouldn't trust it to write an email. I wouldn't trust it to have the finished published story. If I need help getting a listicle in place, like the 10 ways to do something, that might be a jump start of like, give me 10 ideas for
Yeah.
this topic. But I wouldn't trust it to give without any backup data or references. So I think it'll be useful. I don't think it'll be something I'll use in my realm, but I know team members have like tested the waters of it just to, get a tagline in place, ideas rolling that
Right.
way.
And that's completely fine. What I
Mm,
find interesting is in some of the surveys now, email marketing for NGOs, nonprofits, is quite a battle. You have to spend quite a lot of time and resources to grow your list, and then every
mhm.
time you really make a hard ask for donations, you're going to reduce and lose subscribers. So you come out like net even in the end, or maybe just grow a little bit. But at the same time, like a very large amount of charities reported using generative AI for creating content, and then at the same time said that there's a lot of benefit and increased value to personalizing the message to donors. So me personally, I'm echoing what you're saying, in that just creating like this dummy kind of content that's very repetitive and it's not personalized. It hasn't even had the human touch in that regard. It just feels like it's adding to that problem and it's going to make that email marketing statistic worse. Whereas doing more personalized outreach or crafting smarter messages, especially being like on Instagram or YouTube or TikTok, you understand very quickly how important being different is, having a hook, because the very few amount of pieces of content drive the most amount of traffic. And like attention is such a valuable currency nowadays that it's just such a hard thing to get right. So I see a bit of a contradiction, I think, for some of these charities that are looking to offload that work and then potentially make mistakes.
Definitely. And I mean, we could do a part three even just talking about generations because I mean, Gen Alpha, Gen Z, they like they're a whole different donation field. Like they 100% will call out if that is the case. I mean, I don't know, but from social media, you hear
Yeah.
about like Gen Z using AI to write term papers, but they also wouldn't want AI to be what's telling them to donate. So I think that the donors in the generations make the difference. And so I think that like they're not going to trust someone who uses AI. They want to make sure what they're doing is not I mean, people are smart. They're going to read
They
something
are.
and
They are.
know
They're
that
on it.
that is fake or not. And so I think that we can't get away with what those old tactics are anymore. The boomer generation that's unfortunately dying out, like they were what started, well, really the silent generation started NGOs in a sense, and that way of speaking is dying out. So we need to be able to transform, and people are saying AI is the way, but actually it might be reverting back to what it was before to make it personalized, to make it human, because in the end, Gen Alpha, let's just say, they're
Yeah.
going to want that personal touch. They're going to want to know that their money is going directly to something that's going to make a difference because they've grown their entire lives in this destructive world. We're all scarred and traumatized that they want to make sure that they have purpose because
Yeah.
that's important to them. It's important to everyone, but they want the message to be about that too.
So that's donations in hard mode.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh. I'm not looking forward to that. Actually, I mean, all our content is honest. And basically
So,
dump out GoPro footage and throw it on the web, so
and
that's
honestly,
fairly.
that probably does so good. Everyone loves raw footage.
We, there's that whole meme around like deep fried JPEGs or whatever they call them, where it's like so low resolution and it doesn't
Mm.
like it's just been saved and
Mm-hmm.
transferred so many times. And sometimes we have images like that from like a single dog and it's like zoomed in and the quality is so bad. And that one photo may bring in $150,000, whereas like the professionally produced video will do like 2K.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Isn't that
yeah,
fascinating?
it is fascinating. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a bit of an internal meme around that for our like 14-person dog charity, which is quite amusing to us. But yeah, a Gen Alpha is a, is a good way to put it. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're definitely learning. What was the as we're kind of like closing out, I want to figure out what there's the passion project you have going on. We'll find out more about that. What's the quiz? You mentioned it a few times, and I'm not sure what that looks and feels like. What's the purpose?
That is solely about user engagement. So we would promote it on email, we would promote it on social, be like, how much do you know about refugee health? And then you would go to our website and take the quiz. It's true or false, multi-select, various ways to fill out a quiz, kind of like filling out a BuzzFeed quiz
Yeah,
if you're
yeah,
familiar.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And you learn from it.
Okay.
It's pretty, it's engaging, and at the very end, you have a call to action. It'll likely be a donation if you want, or you can close out. You can share it on social media to someone else. We could have it where, depending on what the quiz would be, we could have someone sign something at the very end because we're getting more into the advocacy work with our policy and advocacy team. So the various engagement, but it's that first step to really get users to see our work we're doing. And it's always been something that we've found high success rate with.
And let's say you have some complex questions that help understand the audience, like asking someone for the capital of Sudan. Uh, do you do you then segment those users and then ask one for $100 and the ones who didn't get it $20? Like, is there any back end takeaway actions from your side beyond just looking at the data and being like, oh, that's interesting?
I'm not doing it for this. I
Okay.
think that it's just going to be engagement wise.
Okay. Engagement. Yeah.
I don't think that's a great question. And I think that's when my web developers were like, oh, do you want to do something like that? I was like, no,
Yeah.
no, no. I just want them to answer the quiz. I can see now why they asked that question. No, we're not Jeopardy. We're just gonna have a fun time.
I'll do some reverse psychology, like, oh, you got the capital of Sudan right. You've won the ability to donate $100 instead of 50. See what happens.
I like that tactic.
I feel like it's worth A/B testing in it at least.
Mm.
Um, so we have the passion project, we have the quizzes. You've mentioned multilingual
Hmm.
before. Is that a 2025 roadmap thing or further out?
I think that it the website would not be the first place that it has the multilingual because that's the first place external people will see, but that's not the first place that we would get those translations. So I think that we need to build out a translations team or a translation strategy first then we can expand it to the website. So I don't think it'd be 2025, but I definitely think it would be the next website redesign, which
Yeah.
call me in 3 years if it happened then.
Part seven.
Yeah.
Here we are back with multilingual. And any other epics or any other large pieces going into 2025 that are stuck in your project management tool or GitHub that are just collecting notes and information and becoming larger and larger that you want to unlock in the next sort of 12 to 24 months?
I'm really excited um, for this donation season. We're going to be going out with a campaign that we've used in the past, but we are thinking about making it a yearly thing. So I'm really excited to get benchmarking for it, for how we use the specific type of campaign and how year over year it'll work and how people will resonate. My ultimate goal is for Project Hope to become a household name. I think that it's a
I
name
like that.
in
It's
the
ambitious.
yeah, it's a humanitarian word or humanitarian sphere, people know it. The health worker or like the global health sphere, people know it. But I want it to be at the level that some of our peers are at. And having a year over year campaign can get us there. So it's ambitious, yes, but that is the ultimate goal. And
Yeah, I like that a
we're gonna
lot.
jumpstart that this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, ambitious goals are always the best anyway. And speaking about this sort of higher ambition or passion and, leading to sort of closing out, you've had the range of experience now from whales, seals, all that good stuff to, starting to work on these web projects and being more on the digital side. Um, where's your where's your passion and or your thoughts leading you in terms of what is a big thing you want to take on potentially in the next decade, in terms of just like personally, in terms of mission, like how are these different ingredients forming something in your mind or at the back of your mind that kind of comes back to the front of the mind every couple of weeks or whatever.
I think mine is that just like getting a little bit more peace in the world, world peace, very Miss
Yeah.
America of me, but I think that technology plays such a vital role in the world right now that I think utilizing that to make people feel comfortable and make people feel more connected is the ultimate goal. So whether it's building websites where people feel they are connected to a person on the other end, where it's because this is me being an AI skeptic, where it's not an AI thing that's created it, but it's like a human to human conversation, or making sure that, disasters are going to keep happening. That is inevitable. But knowing that there's resources in place so that you don't have to be stuck in it, or if you are stuck, you know where to reach out to. That's important as well. So if there was an earthquake that were to happen, who can I reach out to make sure that I have everything I need to survive and then build from for afterwards?
Yeah, and where did that, like, is there a source material or, a book or an event that sort of like kicked that off at some point?
I would like to thank my mother.
That's great.
She dragged me to Open Door, which is just like a soup kitchen
Yeah,
uh, place when I was younger. So I've been volunteering my entire life
that's
and
amazing.
helping. I used to work at a no-kill shelter,
Yeah,
volunteering there, walking dogs, playing with kittens. So my entire life has been helping other people, and you need that to balance out some of the other things going on in the world.
yeah, it's one of those years where you feel like so much is polarized and just on the wrong side of the equation. And yeah, we also have I mean, we've never called it a no-kill shelter. We just don't kill
Hmm.
any of our dogs. We always find homes for them. But we had
Hmm.
one come in the other day that took 16 pieces of shrapnel, and yeah, and what a fighter comes back. And this is I think the resiliency of humans, and ultimately, I want to believe that the majority of humans want a better world and a peaceful
Hmm.
one. It's just it happens that a minority of people create probably the majority of content online, and just try to become more and more polarizing with algorithms and
Hmm.
God knows what. And I guess to your point about like AI skepticism and everything, what's his name? Yuval Noah Harari that wrote *Sapiens* and
Hmm.
now came out with the book *Nexus*, talks exactly about that. So yeah, very, very interesting. Cool. This was a great session.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. I learned a lot myself. I hope people watching did too. Might try to get a bit of a roundtable in the future of other digital leaders because it seems like there's a bit of a need for that in the space to have like these open discussions and just share thoughts because as you say, inching towards world peace or just more peace in the world is not necessarily an incremental. It's not a small change that's going to happen overnight. It's a lot of compounding actions, and I think we can all contribute to that.
Definitely.
So on that note, Meg, thank you so much for your time. Really
Thank
appreciated it.
you.